this is Joe Propati again, the designer of Dungeon Hack, the dice game. And in this instructional video, I'm going to be covering doors, dungeon doors specifically. Now, dungeon doors only come out once you draw a dungeon tile, but dungeon doors have different effects during the game. They can hit right in the beginning when you turn over a tile, or they can pop up later as you're trying to exit the dungeon tile. So they'll have different functions in the dungeon tile on how you want to proceed within your venture. So what I'm going to do is, in this video, I'm going to cover 4 different tiles which have dungeon doors in different sections of the dungeon tile. Then I'm going to explain the card itself and how it affects a party and how you can resolve it. So this is the dungeon door. There's only one set that you'll need of action dice to resolve the dungeon door. And the dungeon door will always come out and be in the upper left corner on the section 5. It'll stay there because it never moves, it only gets resolved. So it stays in play until you have the 2 action dice to resolve it. So in this case, to resolve a dungeon door, you need either 2 thief hoods, you need a magic hat and a spellbook, or you need 2 fighter swords or 2 barbarian battle axes, or you need 2 paladin swords or 2 cleric maces. Now, it's not an either or, because you're either going to be playing with a paladin or a cleric, just like you're either going to be playing with a fighter or a barbarian. So it's not a mix and match, it's either these 2, these 2, these 2, or these 2, and that will resolve the door. Now, you can cover different action icons and have multiple dice on here, but as long as you fulfill the requirement of these 2, this one, this one, this one, either set, you'll resolve the door. So when the door comes out, that's where you'll place it. So what happens is, when you have a tile, and I'm going to be covering one of each type of tile, a quarter room, a quarter, a junction tile, and a room. So first we'll start with a quarter. So let's say you draw a quarter tile, okay? And you see in the upper right corner the dungeon door. So you know it's going to have a door, dungeon door, and you're going to need to resolve it. So you'll place it up in the upper left corner on the 5, and then you'll realize this is an exit dungeon door. So since you are entering in the where the red triangle is, or the red arrow, everything before that door is visible. So that means you'll draw a trap, and you'll draw 2 monsters, and you'll also draw the door. Now, with this type of tile and where the door is sitting, you don't have to resolve the door before you resolve any of the other encounters, the monster and the trap. But in this situation, to get out of this or get through this dungeon tile, you have to resolve this door. So you may finish up the monster and the trap and not resolve the door yet, and you'll have to keep rolling to resolve this door just to get through this dungeon tile. Now remember, when you're rolling to resolve this dungeon door and you've already resolved the trap and the monsters, every roll, random monsters still apply. Camp dice don't. They just get placed in the discard or in the regroup. But if you roll a random monster, these will get placed on the game board. And as they add up, you will get random monsters. So just remember that. As you're rolling to resolve this door, keep in mind that random monsters still can have an effect. But camp dice do not. They get ignored. Okay, so that's this quarter with a dungeon door at the end. Now if you have a quarter room, such as this, again you'll see that there's a dungeon icon in the upper right corner, and when you look at the dungeon tile, you'll notice, okay, as you enter through the red arrow, you do see 2 monsters. So you will draw the monster cards, place them on the game board, and you'll put your door, because you see it. But you'll also notice that the treasure is behind the door. Anything behind the door, you do not see yet, so you don't draw it. In this case, you won't draw a treasure card. You have to get through the door to draw this card. So as you're playing through and rolling, and you defeat the 2 monsters, again, you have to defeat or resolve the door to get through it, to get to the treasure. As before, random monsters apply, but camp dice don't. So you can decide, since it's not blocking your exit, you could ignore this door and ignore this treasure. In this case, if you want to do that, you could just apply or put all your dice in the regroup and then continue on by drawing another dungeon. And if you wanted to later, you could backtrack to this. But if you're going to do that, I would place a cube over this treasure to show that you have not opened this door and received this treasure. So it is something you can backtrack to if you don't want to try and deal with this. Like, let's say you're rolling bad and you've been getting a lot of random monsters, or you just want to proceed because your characters are low in health. Just ignore the door and continue on. In this situation, you could do that because it's not blocking your path. Now, let's talk about a junction tile. So you draw a junction tile, and again, you see the door icon in the right corner, so you know there's going to be a door. Right when you look at the dungeon tile, you see where the door is. So you'll again place the dungeon door, and then you notice that at least everything you can see is before that door. So you would draw everything. You would draw the trap, you would draw the treasure, place it face down, and you would draw the 3 monster cards. You also draw the door, but again, like in the quarter room, it's not something you have to resolve unless you want to go through and continue through this way. You could resolve the 3 monsters, resolve the trap, get your treasure, and then decide, I'm going to ignore this door and continue on to the left, draw another tile and go along your merry way. But if you do that, just remember when you come back to this, if you backtrack, you need to get through this door. You could, unless, if you have a good memory, you don't need to do this, but it would be a good idea to place a dungeon cube, and probably a brown one would be good to show a door, placed on that door, and this way you know you haven't resolved that door yet. And when you backtrack to this, you would just place the door back out and roll and resolve random monsters, just no camp dice. But if you backtrack, always ignore these images, the monsters, the trap, and the treasure. They're not going to apply again, only the door. So you could continue this path, continue on the adventure, but you'll eventually have to backtrack and get through that exit. So you'll have to deal with that door. So it's just a matter of when you want to do it in your adventure. So that's a junction tile. Now the last one is a room tile. Now room tiles only have a 1 entrance, no exit. So in this case, if you see a room tile and it has that icon, you got a door, so you're going to put that out in the beginning. Now these are special. Whenever you have a tile that has a door in the very beginning, right after the arrow, it must be resolved before anything else. You don't draw a trap, you don't draw monsters, you don't draw a treasure. First thing you're going to have to deal with is the dungeon door. So let's say you got your dungeon door and you want to get through it. So you roll, right? And you see what you got. So right off the bat we lucked out. We got 2 hoods. We have 1 sword, 1 mace, 1 magic hat. So you could resolve it with the 2 hoods, and you're through the door. But what you have to remember is, once you break through this door, and in this case you pick the lock on it, these dice are no longer available. The door is open and you have to deal with this situation with the dice that you've rolled. So it's not like you've opened the door and you get to re-roll again. It's an action as if you opened the door and surprised everybody. So in this case you would roll your dice. You used your 2 thief hoods to get through the door. Now you have to draw a trap, right? Draw 3 monsters. Oh, not treasures, but we'll say these 3 monsters. All right. I'm just going to put them anywhere. And then you have your treasure. So you can place your treasure down. This is what you're going to deal with for this situation. So you'd go, okay, well, at least I can cause some damage. You know, I've got a mace, I've got a magic hood, I've got shields, and I think that was I've got a dagger and a bow. So you're looking at it like, okay, this door was resolved, so we removed that. We've got our trap, our 3 monsters, and our treasure. Now you're ready to go. So it's it's tricky because you have to realize whatever you're going to use to resolve the door to get into this room, all the other action dice that you have left are what you're going to use to deal with this encounter. No re-rolls, you know, everything is available at that time. So just remember, if you have a door and you need to get through it to see what's inside, you resolve the door first, use the dice to resolve it, and then whatever's remaining action dice wise, that is going to basically start your turn and deal with the situation that's inside the room or the corridor room or part of the junction. So it's the same thing. This not just a room, but it applies to any other dungeon tile, corridor room, or junction. That's the first thing right behind the red arrow. Deal with the door first. Don't draw anything else. So that is a entrance door. So I hope that's made it a little clearer on how dungeon doors work and how you apply them to the game and gameplay. If you have any questions, please put them under the video in the comment section. And thanks for watching.